This weekend, the latest film from Paul Feig, Last Christmas, hits theaters, so today I'm going to stop and rank all 8 of his movies from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all 8 Paul Feig movies, or at least however many of them you have seen. As I went into this, I didn't know that there was 8. I actually had a list of 6. I watched 3 of those, did a little Google search, and realized there were 2 more secret movies I'd never heard of or seen before. So watched those over the last few days, and now we are ready to start ranking his movies. I gotta say, I'm a little bit biased as I go into this list because the first movie I ever reviewed for Sean Chandler Talks About was Ghostbusters 2016. That's the movie that started all of this. It's the movie that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. So I might be a little bit biased in my perspective of his films as he changed everything for me. With that said, let's get started. Coming in last place is Unaccompanied Minors. This is a family comedy from about 13 years ago about a whole bunch of different kids attempting to travel for the Christmas holiday unaccompanied, thus unaccompanied minors, that get stuck at an airport and the hijinks that ensue. A whole bunch of people from The Office, as well as Kristen Wiig, appear inside of it. Lewis Black is one of the adults inside of it trying to stop the kids from all of their hijinks. But in general, it's a movie that I don't think really hits particularly well on any of the levels that it's going for. After we watched it last night, my wife and I actually talked about how it's tough to pinpoint exactly what's wrong. It's not like the kids are super annoying. It's not like it doesn't try to have some of these family arcs inside of it. It's not like there aren't a bunch of really funny adults inside of it. It just kind of misses the mark entirely on everything that it's going for, just enough that the movie as a whole is totally forgettable. It's not funny, it's not emotional, it's just kind of there. Next up is I Am David, his very first movie that he directed, and it's not a comedy at all. It's actually about a little boy that escapes a concentration camp in Bulgaria in 1950s Europe and tries to travel across the country. It's a very heavy, serious drama about this boy and his journey to kind of find his mom, as everyone he's ever known has died and he's lived in a concentration camp his whole life. So naturally, it's a kind of a downer. It's obviously a drama, but it's aimed to be kind of like a family drama that's kind of inspiring as it's rated PG. Once again, it's a film that I don't think quite hits the mark. It tries to have some twists and turns as you go into the third act and you kind of realize exactly what's been going on. It attempts to kind of be a little bit inspiring in what it's doing, but it's a film that it just doesn't have anything that it's specifically good at. You don't really connect with the boy because he doesn't have a strong personality to him because he is kind of this kid that has been raised on a concentration camp and he's just on this journey, so he's kind of in shell shock the whole film, so you don't connect with him, and he keeps going from place to place to place, and it just hops from story to story to story. There's nothing really to grab hold of. I don't think the twists at the end were that compelling. The story was kind of clunky at the beginning, so once again, one that I just didn't think worked very well. Number 6 is The Heat. This is his buddy cop comedy with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. A lot of people love this film. I'd heard so many people raving about how funny it was, so I went to go see it as someone that enjoys buddy cop films, that enjoys Melissa McCarthy, enjoys Paul Feig movies, or at least at this point in time, I enjoyed Bridesmaids before it, and then, of course, Sandra Bullock is great, and I just have never been into this movie. So my memories weren't great about it. Rewatched it in preparation for this video, and I just don't find it very funny. And I think the problem is that normally Paul Feig is able to get wit out of Melissa McCarthy. She's kind of one of these people that can do kind of trashy comedy, and sometimes it just feels like she's phoning it in, and other times it feels like she's really finds that wit. It might be trashy, but it's really clever in what she's saying and doing. In this movie, to me, just felt like her just dropping F-bombs and saying crass things. And then the other half of the joke was, you get into the second half of the film and Sandra Bullock starts dropping the F-bombs. A lot of it is just like they talk about female genitalia with biologically correct terms, and they just kind of say it. And it's just not really funny to me. Just saying offensive things, dropping F-bombs, talking about female genitalia. Those aren't really good jokes. And then even on the action comedy side to it, there's not really much action in this movie at all. So while on paper, I should love this film, it just didn't click for me. And that brings us to Ghostbusters 2016, a movie that the internet loves to hate. It's a movie I've just never hated. Naturally, as I mentioned, I'm totally biased about this one because I saw it in the theater and I thought, I'm totally down the middle on this one. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's not a total embarrassment. It's certainly not worthy of the original. Why don't I make a movie review about it? Actually shot it right over there. And now this is what I do full time. So I am indebted to this film greatly. Movie in and of itself, totally mediocre, undeserving of the Ghostbusters name. I just don't think it's a terrible film at the same time. It relies 100% on the strengths of the cast being likable. I think Chris Hemsworth is actually really funny inside of this film. You get some little moments from all the other actresses inside of it. Honestly, I think ultimately the biggest issue with this film is that it doesn't really have its own identity or thing that warrants its existence. But Paul Feig's style, I don't think meshes with Ghostbusters very well, whereas the original one was very organic in its humor, and it plays a lot of things fairly straight-faced considering how ridiculous everything happening is. And here it plays like we're doing big gigantic bits and people are riffing and dance. Like, it just feels so hard and it's going for such broad humor. The original was so funny and it made it seem so effortless. Here you just feel all of their attempts to try and make you laugh, and a lot of them fall pretty far flat. Though for me, some of them actually work pretty well. And I don't think the changes they made to the story itself helped any. I think it would have done better if they'd just done a straight remake of the original story more directly. So, made a lot of really weird choices with this one. I just don't hate it like a bunch of other people do. Coming in at number 4 is Last Christmas, the latest of the Paul Feig movies. I was actually really excited for this movie because I enjoy quite a bit of his filmography, and then having Emilia Clarke with Henry Golding, it just sounded like a great combination. I think he's charming. She can be cute, charming as well. Put them together in a rom-com. What could possibly go wrong? Make it a Christmas rom-com. Seems like a great formula. Not so much. I was pretty frustrated by it. At the same time, it's a movie that, like, I enjoyed the leads, and there's elements in it that were really funny and cute and charming and quirky, but the product as a whole probably left me more lukewarm. And the big issue here is that it's a movie that sells itself as a rom-com. The trailers sold as a rom-com. Even I was looking at some ads for it today, and they call it the romantic movie for the Christmas season and stuff like that. But once you get to the end of this movie, it's not a rom-com. It has a lot of ways the structures of a rom-com. It has the beats of a rom-com. It has the scenes of a rom-com. But it's not a rom-com by the time you get to the end of the movie. And I can't elaborate more than that without really spoiling some of what's actually going on inside of the story. But for that reason, the movie kind of ends on kind of a weird note because you're like, what was I supposed to feel during this movie? How am I supposed to interpret everything that just happened? The other big problem with it is that because the genre's a little bit unclear, and it's really about this girl pulling her life back together after something tragic happened, and we don't really learn all of what that was until about halfway through the movie. And so because of that, she's just really unlikable for the first half of the film. The only reason she's tolerable is because Emilia Clarke herself is a likable person, and so she can make this horribly unlikable person seem more charming than she actually is. It feels like 3 different movies. You have this drama about her family, and everything's so heavy-handed, like it's dealing with Brexit and drama related to that, and like racism, and her mom's like fear of things, and how dysfunctional her family is. And then it goes over to like quirky humor where she's working at a soup kitchen, and then it's doing like rom-com sort of stuff over here when the Henry subplot or Henry plot of the movie. And the 3 didn't fit together because each of them was just so heavy. This one just felt like a few too many things that didn't quite go together quite right. Real quick before I give you my top 3, remember to share your ranking down below in the comment section, at least for however many of them that you have seen. Also, once this video is done, check out this playlist up above. It's got some of my other rankings of other directors' filmographies like Jon Favreau, Christopher Nolan, people like that. If you've enjoyed this video, I've probably ranked another director's filmography that you'll enjoy right up there. In third place is A Simple Favor. This is a dark comedy and a bit of a mystery thriller at the same time. Blends several different genres, and it does it for the most part quite well. A big part of the reason that this movie works is the two leads inside of it, with Anna Kendrick, who's on the one hand doing her usual personality, but it adds into it kind of a couple extra layers of, I don't know, naivety, while at the same time, pretty dark past inside of the character, which just makes for a very interesting mix, especially as the film goes along. And then, especially if you know some of her other stuff, it's very enjoyable to see this kind of turn for her. And then Blake Lively as just this unbelievably manipulative person with a pretty sick sense of humor, and you put the two of them together and they have such an odd chemistry between the two of them that it's like magnetizing in a very weird sort of way. As you go through the movie and you watch Anna Kendrick's character kind of change and the stuff that she does and the weirdness that it all kind of takes, it's such an offbeat dark comedy that if you haven't seen it, it's tough to exactly describe the types of humor that's inside of it and where the film goes and what makes it intriguing. Once you get used to what it's serving you, what it is itself, it's quite a delicious meal. There's probably a few too many twists and turns in the final, I don't know, third of the film. It's like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and this is what's really going on. You're like, okay, you got 5 of those, probably only need 3. But overall, very satisfying, some nice kind of final reveals inside of it. Our runner-up is Spy. There's so many things about this movie that I just absolutely love. I'll actually start with the negatives on this one, and I'll just say this. If this movie was trimmed down by about 10 minutes, if it was tightened up just a little bit, it probably would be my number 1 on this list. I think it's got probably one too many sequences. But whereas I talked about the heat, where I felt like the comedy wasn't really on point, this movie solves all of that. This is great Melissa McCarthy. This is great Rose Byrne. It's great Jude Law, and maybe the best Jason Statham that I've ever seen. And I say that as someone that has enjoyed Jason Statham in a whole lot of different things. It's firing on all cylinders. It's got cool action inside of it. It's got all the spy things that you want. Like, you can watch it as just a spy movie and it's kind of a fun on that level. And then you can watch it on a comedy and it's absolutely hilarious. Back to Jason Statham. They make his character like the most extreme exaggerated of the stereotype of a Jason Statham character, except he's an idiot that doesn't know it. And every time he shows up, he just steals every scene. But everyone else in the movie is really funny too. Melissa McCarthy doesn't just kind of do her trashy routine. She does a little bit of that at times, but she just kind of plays a character inside of it that becomes a spy, and so does a whole bunch of different stuff throughout the film. Rose Byrne is delightfully mean-spirited inside of it. But in general, I think this is just when I think Paul Feig movie, this is what I love when he does to a genre, that it has the wit, it has the genre itself, and then great characters and just some standout performances. But coming in at first place is Bridesmaids. This is the comedy that kind of put him on the map as one of the top comedic directors of this past decade, and I think rightfully so. At the time it came out, it was kind of perceived of as a girl's version of The Hangover, where The Hangover was about a bunch of guys on a bachelor party behaving badly and having hijinks. This movie does a lot of that too. There is a bachelorette party that they go on, and there's girls behaving badly. It's a crass rated R comedy, but I think it's a much deeper film than The Hangover, and I think it's aged much better because of that. There's also not 2 lesser sequels to it, so it also has a better reputation for that reason, where functionally it's much more of a dramedy, where you see, if you look at it as a life study for her, this person that tried some things and failed and has just made it into this funk where she's just self-sabotaging. And I think that works really nicely. But then beyond that, there's just so many other, like, she's great in the movie, but so is kind of everyone else inside of it. This is the movie that kind of introduced me to Chris O'Dowd and kind of made me just think, this guy's great. He needs to do a lot more things because he feels like such a natural guy that can be funny, but he's not funny because he's doing big joke setups. Of course, this is the movie that made Melissa McCarthy a movie star. Rose Byrne, once again, kind of plays the mean girl inside of it, and just such a delightful female mean girls rivalry inside of it that plays it for most of the laughs. But there's just some fantastic sequences in this movie that are quotable, that are memorable, that are just laugh out loud funny inside of it while having a central emotional arc inside of it. So for me, this is the Paul Feig movie that probably, I don't find it quite as funny as Spy, but it's almost as funny as Spy, but it has a lot more emotion to it, and as a whole, draws out more great emotions from me. So for me, Bridesmaids comes in at number 1. If you want more videos like this one, check out that playlist right over there where I rank the filmographies of several other directors. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.